Here we go. Went to the dentist this morning for the first time since 2014. He was lovely. Read me for filth. In the nicest possible way. He was smiling the whole time. He's like, "Girl, get your shit together." Like, come on. But yeah, I get to see him in a month for 3 fillings. And he was like, "Oh, 3, all on the same side. So it's my chewing side."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
So
chewing side. Do you have a specific side?
Yeah,
I do.
Oh, really?
Because I had 3 fillings on that side about a year and a half ago.
Girl. Yeah.
Oh.
But I had a nice
check.
I had a nice teeth clean, and he's like, "Oh, you've got really like white teeth." I was like, "Thank Christ I have something going for me." But
Because otherwise the dentist just fucking hates you.
and he's like, "Your teeth haven't really moved at all, considering that you got your braces off in like 2007." So I'm a bit proud of myself, but I'm also like, oh, yeah. But anyway, let me just crack open this massive can of energy drink I'm going to guzzle down. And
Yes.
yeah, I've got the fillings already booked in. I don't need to worry about it.
Excellent.
That's right. Just be absolutely fucking debaucherous.
Yep.
From now until then. You've got a week.
Yeah.
Yep, precisely. I have a dental story, actually. It's not my story, though.
I love this
Someone
so much.
else's.
Go, girl.
I have a friend who recently confided in me that he went to the dentist, and it was a pretty Eurasian dentist who was drilling in his mouth, and she was like apologizing because he was grunting and sort of like breathing very heavily. And she was like, "I'm very sorry." And he was like, "She didn't know that I actually had the most intense erection from the drill and was so turned on that if the air conditioner blew the wrong way, I was going to blow her load in my pants."
Oh, it's getting drilled in the mouth a bit sexy.
It is a bit sexy,
is he like
especially
into
when
like
they're sexy?
medical play?
He likes pain, yeah.
Oh, he just likes pain.
He has a thing for pretty girls hurting him.
Let that be a lesson to all of our friends and family out there. If you tell us an embarrassing story, we're probably going to tell it to all of our listeners.
Everyone. I will never say the name.
Named, of course.
Everyone.
It's fun because then you can choose it.
So never tell me anything.
His name was Alejandro.
Exactly.
I like that.
Oh, that just makes me think of the Gaga song, and that's a very sexy song.
It's a bit sexy. I love Lady Gaga so much.
I love Lady Gaga. I've been watching RuPaul in my stuck in surgery time, watching all the Drag Race, and I just did season 9 where they do the first episodes with Lady Gaga, and I died.
It's beautiful.
I was so happy.
How good was it when they were like, "Oh my god, is she an impersonator?" It's like, just kidding, it's the real Gaga.
I would have died. I saw her in concert
So
with my little sister when I was very young. I made a big hair bow and everything.
I went as Gaga for Halloween once.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
I cried off my blue lightning bolt and went home within 20 minutes of arriving to the party.
Oh no, what happened?
I don't remember. I was a very sad teen.
Aww.
I was very sad.
Well,
Big emo phase.
Big emo phase. Well, that's enough rambling. Let's start this show.
Welcome, listeners, to The Weird Sisters, a podcast about the blurst and bizarre and all the things you are happier not knowing about.
I am Laura. I am a vengeful goddess raining down iron on a caravan of dancing girls.
And I am your most accident-prone stepchild, Tay.
Oh.
And I am a floating city, Lacey.
So I know that the theme was Oceans 2.0 because we have done Oceans before.
Oceans 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I would like to request a movement from oceans to bodies of water because I found something really fucking cool and I ended up not doing an ocean.
Bodies of water it is.
Bodies of water.
It's a puddle.
My story doesn't take place in the ocean, but is ocean/body of water adjacent.
Okay.
So
right.
I vote yay.
So am I the only one who actually did the assignment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Potentially.
All right.
We're
All right.
sorry.
Nice
We're
one.
sorry.
Bodies of water. Electric Boogaloo.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm first because I decided it. So, have either of you heard of Rupkund?
Excuse me?
What did you call me?
A.K.A. the Mystery Lake, A.K.A. Skeleton's Lake.
No, tell me everything right now,
Is this
please.
the weird one with the mine?
No. This is a
Okay,
different thing. This is another
nobody
thing.
do that one. I'll do that one in Bodies of Water 3 Electric Boogaloo. E. All right.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Hot
Okay,
Tub Time
excellent.
Machine. Yep. Okay.
So, all right. Well, Rupkund. Okay. Anyway, so in India, in the state of Uttarakhand, don't know if that's pronounced correctly. Please yell at me in the comments. At an altitude of 16,470 feet, which is the equivalent of 5,020 meters. Basically, in 1942, at this particular altitude in the Himalayas, a game reserve ranger stumbled upon an uninhabited high-altitude glacial lake.
I know what it
It's
is
a very
now.
small lake. It's only like... Shut the fuck up! It's about 3 meters deep, and it's only about the size of a football pitch. There's nothing unusual about it. It's located between two mountains. It's around 35 kilometers from the nearest human settlement. However, at the bottom of the crystal clear glacial waters of the lake, scattered around its shores and bobbing along the surface, were hundreds upon hundreds of human bones.
There's a bone broth.
Spooky,
It's a
scary
bone
skeleton.
broth.
Human bone broth.
It's beautiful. And they're all clearly visible. So at the time, in 1942, when Bro rediscovered this, there were very, very serious concerns by the British authorities that these were actually the remains of a Japanese invasion force, because obviously World War II was happening at that time. So they were fucking nervous, because how the fuck did that many Japanese soldiers get past them? Because this is literally hundreds upon hundreds of bones in a very small section of the Himalayas. So the skeletons still have flesh attached. Like, they had not been there particularly long as far as they were concerned, because there's like bits on them.
Chunks.
One explorer described this site to an Indian radio station as a ghastly scene that made us catch our breath, which I think is very nice.
Oh,
It's very gothic, isn't it?
I would use that in an everyday language. Yeah, every day.
Exactly. That's how I'll describe, a new pair of shoes that I'm really into. So they sent a team in to go and investigate, and basically discovered that the remains were much, much too old to be anywhere near a problem with World War II soldiers, like way back when. So then they started to figure out how many fucking bodies are here, why are they here, what the fuck is going on. So at this point, over 300, possibly up to 800 skeletons have been found of individual remains. There's also wooden artifacts, iron spearheads, leather slippers, and rings found. The terrain is very dry, frozen completely, and that has preserved an astounding amount of hair and skin on the skeletons.
Ooh.
It's fucking wild. The photos are really intense. So they started throwing about theories, and basically they started talking about, like, okay, is it a pandemic that happened? Was there a natural disaster here? Ritualistic sacrifice? Or is this suicide committed by holy men in a certain way? Maybe the dead were a detachment of soldiers from 13th century army that was sent out by a particular Sultan of Delhi, basically in like an attempt to invade Tibet that was never found. And there's also a theory that it had been the skulls of General Zarwar Singh of Kashmir and his men, who got lost and died in the middle of the Himalayan region after they got caught in bad weather. But for decades, no one has any fucking idea what's going on. There's just like 300 to 800 skeletons bobbing around in the water in the mountains. And they're like, who knows? So they do heaps upon heaps of testing on these bones. Like, lots of different organizations come along and basically just take a bunch of skeletons. But because it's in the Himalayas, and just because no one really tries to lay claim on them, nothing's performed systematically. And the nature of the site, which is prone to like rock slides and being scavenged by hikers and pilgrims, no one really gets anything concrete until 1956. So when that happens, the Anthropological Survey of India in Calcutta sponsored a bunch of expeditions to go and investigate Rupkund. A snowstorm forced the first expedition to turn back, but 2 months later, another one finally made it and returned with the remains for study. So when they did that, basically, the skeletons revealed that they all had head injuries, like almost all of the ones that they had brought in. So there's 308
Blunt force
skeletons.
trauma.
Yes. So they didn't take all the skeletons. They took some skeletons, and those skeletons, a lot of them had blunt force trauma or nothing really to indicate what the fuck had happened to them. And they believed, looking at the type of trauma that had been like received, it was caused by some kind of round object from above. So they took about 30 skeletons in 2003. Like, National Geographic came in and took some as well, and some still bearing flesh even now, and decided, okay, we're also going to do a study. And they tried to find out a little bit more about what had happened and who these people might potentially have been. So in the region where Rupkund sits, there is a local legend that says the king of Kanjanu, I don't know how the fuck to say that, and his pregnant wife, their servants, a dance troupe, and a bunch of others went on a pilgrimage to Nanda Devi, which is a shrine, which is not too far away from where this lake is. The group basically perished along the way, possibly as a result of large hailstones. Now, yeah, so interesting. Apparently the region is relatively common with hail. Among the Himalayan women that live immediately within the vicinity of this lake, though, like the closest villages, those 35 KOA ones we talked about before, there's an ancient folk song, like ancient song.
Oh,
So
spooky
this
song,
spooky
lots of skeletons.
song. So this song talks about how basically they are all along the route for a pilgrimage to honor Nanda Devi. She is a manifestation of Parvati, who is a supreme goddess in Hinduism. The pilgrimage basically winds up through the foothills of the Himalayas. The locals believe the goddess lives up there with her husband, Shiva. It may be the longest and most dangerous pilgrimage in India, and it is a particular, like, there's a really perilous section that runs along the ridge just above Rupkund. As this song tells it, basically, Nanda Devi left her home to visit a distant kingdom where she was treated discourteously by the king and queen. Nanda Devi cursed the kingdom, unleashing drought and disaster and infesting the milk and rice with maggots. In order to appease...
Oh.
Yeah, right, gross. Unless we're talking about Lars' weird maggot cheese from way back when.
Then it's gourmet.
Then it's
Then it's
expensive.
fine. Then it's tasty. Now I'm really hungry. So in order to basically appease her, the royal couple go on a pilgrimage. The king, who likes his entertainment though, decides to, for some fucking reason, take along like a bevy of dancing courtesans and musicians and all this sorts of shit. And along the pilgrimage, which they go quite fucking slowly, they just sort of stop every so often and just have a nice time. So Nanda Devi, the goddess, is furious at the display of earthly pleasures, and she shoves the dancing girls down into the pits in the underworld, and which are still sunk high on the side of the mountain, apparently. And then, according to legend, she sent down a blizzard of hail and a whirlwind which swept all the pilgrims onto the path of death and into the lake, and their skeletons are a warning to those who disrespect the goddess. So that's really interesting because, like, this fucking song is so old, and yet it coincides with this, like, perfectly almost head injuries that are discovered by the Anthropological Survey in India. So we have another guy that goes around and starts doing some surveys and starts to look at, okay, I'm going to take some more of these skeletons and figure out what I can with radiocarbon dating and also with genome analysis. So some of what I'm going to read you in a minute is like directly from this paper that he wrote because fuck me, I have no idea how to tell it any differently than what he says. So these skeletons basically show evidence of belonging, initially at least, to two distinct groups. There's a taller group and then there's a second shorter group which they believe potentially was locals hired to transport goods for the first group. They have like these ridges in their skull which sort of coincides with a kind of carrying basket that porters would use in this particular region. They actually use them so much it put dents in their fucking skulls.
That's just called leveling up, baby.
Exactly. Next level. It's like when you wrap a baby's head and it turns it into a cone.
Oh. You're putting a pear in one of those little molds and it grows into like a little like Buddha.
I love those. I want to
beautiful.
get those so badly.
Do you remember bonsai kittens? Yeah, that was not
That was
real,
cool.
thankfully. But that
But
was a
still.
fucked up thing on the internet for a long time.
Oh, I was thinking about that the other day. That is an ancient internet relic, that.
It
Holy
is.
shit.
And for anyone that doesn't know, don't Google it because it'll make you sad. But basically, it was a thing on the internet where it was photos of little kittens that had been kept in like bottles all their lives and were like, yeah, they're bonsai kittens. They only get this big. It was really sad.
But it was fake.
Thankfully not real.
Yes.
Not real. Fake. Definitely fake.
Debunked.
And I don't want anyone to prove me otherwise. No Snopes. So anyway, radiocarbon dating gets done. And they find out that the time of death was probably somewhere around 850 CE.
Yeah.
Fucking long time ago. Real fucking long time ago to still have skin.
Old as balls.
Old as balls.
Old as balls.
Do they still have balls?
They still have it. Some of them anyway. So that was the first round of radiocarbon dating. Then they did some more, and they found out, in combination with this genome analysis, that actually the remains aren't all from one particular era, which is what they initially thought. It's a bunch of different eras with probably 3 distinct groups that died at 3 different periods or 2 different periods. So there's a group of remains with South Asian ancestry that dates to a period of around about 800 CE, Common Era.
Yep.
The other skeletal remains are weirdly Mediterranean.
Okay. Right.
And that probably was like around 1800 CE. So 1800s. Yeah, so like it's wild because this is the Himalayas in India and apparently these dudes trekked all the way over from the Mediterranean. They get specific about where they may be from. And basically they think that probably the ancestry came from somewhere around Crete in Greece. So how the fuck that happened, how they got there, nobody knows. But pretty much these findings are like, okay, so they definitely didn't die in a single catastrophic event. A bunch of people died at this very specific spot in the Himalayas at very different times, separated by 1,000 years.
I love it.
Which is fucking wild to me. Like,
that's...
But
I'm
also
processing it. My brain is catching up. The Red Bull hasn't hit in. Fuck.
So that's between 300 and 800 people that fucking died in this one. And the Himalayas are huge. Like, they're a fucking big chain of mountains, all right? And yet, you know, people climb shit all the time, whatever, sure. But they all died in this football field size place. That's huge. That's so fucking weird. There's not like skeletons scattered around the rest of the mountain. It's just here that they find all these bodies. So they basically have a look at these skeletons and they're like, okay, cool. Why are there these 2 different groups here? And the paper that I read, which I'm now going to read to you word for word because I don't fucking know how to say it any differently, basically found that the Rupkund skeletons belong to 3 genetically distinct groups that were deposited during multiple events separated by approximately 1,000 years. The individuals in Rupkund Group A fall along the genetic gradient that includes most present-day South Asians. However, they do not fall in a type cluster along this gradient, suggesting they do not comprise of a single endogamous group. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And instead they come from a diversity group, which means they probably weren't related in any way.
That's good.
Individuals along the group can... Yeah, exactly. So it's not like...
I mean, that doesn't happen normally for us, does it? We're all about that.
Well, I mean, like, if we're thinking about 800 CE, we're looking at a group of, like, people lived in family groups a lot. And if you were traveling in a big group, you probably had a lot of relations. You probably weren't just traveling just because, unless you're like a battalion.
Yeah.
But they didn't find any weapons. They found absolutely no weapons. And that's what sort of like fucks them up a little bit. Like over and over again, they keep putting forward these theories. And then it's like, but they don't have any horses with them. There's no weaponry of any kind. There's no trading goods that we can find. Like these people didn't have anything with them.
Wouldn't they have been like scavenged from the people who
Potentially, but then they found other shit. So that's something that does come up later, and I'll go over that in a minute as well.
All right.
So then we get to Rubicon B group, and they don't fall along this gradient. Instead, they fall near present-day West Eurasians, suggesting that the Rubicon B individuals possess West Eurasian-related ancestry. One single individual of the skeletons that they took is the Rubicon C group, which falls far away from all the other individuals on the scale, basically, and it looks like they may be of Han Chinese, East Asian related ancestry. So they've separated by 1,000 years of 3 different kinds of groups, very different people, non-family groups, none of them. Which is weird. Super weird.
What
Yeah.
happened? I need to know.
Why are they here? So death by battle is very unlikely. They are men and women and some children, I believe. There's no weapons or horses found, like we said. The wounds are not varied either. So they're not finding skeletons where some of them have like a broken arm and some of them have a stab wound through the chest, as you would expect in a massacre, because you're not just going to kill everyone the same way. There's no arrows, there's nothing like that. There's no like broken blades. All they find is most of the skeletons that they look at have head injuries. It's not a cemetery. Most of the individuals are healthy and between the ages of about 18 and 35 years old. There's no evidence of disease. There's no evidence of trade goods. Artifacts that they do retrieve include leather slippers, pieces of parasols made of bamboo and birch bark, which, fuck me, how the hell is that still around after so long? Bangles made of seashells and glass, which they do note that devotees of the goddess Nanda Devi carry parasols and wear bangles on their pilgrimages. Yeah. So we're not really like finding out why the fuck these people are here. We just can sort of start to like go, this didn't kill them. It's not this. It's not this. So the location isn't even a particularly like significant place on the path to this pilgrimage that is like the only thing that really happens in this part of the mountain. There's a guy called William Sachs who's the head of the Heidelberg University's anthropology department, and he also wrote a book on the pilgrimage. And basically he says, when pilgrims get up to Rupkund, they're scrambling because they have much further to go, so they sort of stop and briefly show a bit of respect, but it's not and never has been a terribly important place for the pilgrimage itself. It's kind of dark and dirty place where you nod your head and move on.
Right.
So the skeletons aren't always visible either, is something else that's important, I think, to note. Like, there's 1 month in summer where the ice melts. Otherwise, the lake is completely frozen over at all times, and you have no idea they're there.
Mystery skeletons.
I know.
Mystery soup.
Creepy. Like, imagine, like, you're just, you know, one of these people that, like, I don't know, helps people on their pilgrimage, and, like, every year you fucking do the pilgrimage with all these cunts and you go past this frozen lake and it's not really much to look at. And then one year you may become a little bit too early or a little bit too late and you catch it when it's still, like, soupy and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Hold up.
Why are there
What
bodies
is this?
here? Just go to get a drink of water and there's some dude's skull grinning up at you. You're like, oh, okay.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Yeah. So anyway, this B group, the Rubicon B individuals who are the West Eurasian descent, their genomes don't look in any way Indian or even Asian. Of all the places in the world, India is one of the ones that has the most heavily sampled in terms of human diversity. This is according to a scholar, Reach, who did some experiments on these bones. We have sampled 300 different groups in India, and there's nothing that even is close to the Rubicon B group, despite the fact that they have an extremely diverse range of genomes. So potentially, like I said before, there's possibly that these people came from somewhere near Crete. It would be a mistake to say that they're specifically from Crete, apparently. It doesn't match perfectly, but they're like clearly a population of that area. They're less likely in that case to be doing a pilgrimage. Like, in the 1800s, why would a bunch of Greeks come over and convert to Hinduism and do this pilgrimage? And a big fucking group of them, like, from what they're looking at when they, like, take a sample of the bones, this group of people make up probably around about a third of the 3 to 800 individuals that they found there. So that's like either 100 to like 400 skeletons that are from this group. So why the fuck are these people there? Their
Why are
diet
they
is
there?
definitely different. Yeah, exactly. Their diet's different. Like they did analysis on the bones again, and the A and the C group, which is the other two, like what they expect of the region. They eat certain types of food from that region. But the paper that I read basically were like, so this group B predominantly ate terrestrial food. They didn't really eat any marine-based products. So they lived in an inland location. And combined with their background of Eastern Mediterranean genetic material, it seems really fucking weird that they will have taken up Hinduism, traveled all this fucking way, and then been like, yes, let's do this pilgrimage. So it's tempting to have a look. Like some of these papers were like, okay, well, maybe they are individuals that descended from Indo-Greek populations that were established after the time of Alexander the Great. And basically, like, there's this group called the Kalash, which are like a tribe in northern Pakistan that claim to have been descendants of Alexander's soldiers, which is cool, super cool. However, they don't really think it's likely that this group are in any way similar. So, like, the Kalash people were like from a place and then they moved somewhere else, and that's why they are like such an unusual genetic group living in Pakistan. They don't think that these people, this like strange group of Rupkund B skeletons, are anything like that. Because if that was the case, it would probably be likely that they'd be inbred and have a relatively low genetic diversity. But they don't. They aren't like that. They have a pretty high genetic diversity. They're not inbred as far as I could tell. And they were not related to one another in any way. So it's not like they're a family group. So, yeah basically it's probably a group that would suggest that they had been unrelated men or women born in the Eastern Mediterranean during the period of Ottoman political control. But the William Sachs guy that I mentioned earlier, who wrote the book on this pilgrimage, is like, there's no fucking way that I have done 30 years of research on this pilgrimage and this area and have never heard a word, not even a story or a folktale, about a group of fucking white dudes coming over and wandering around in the Himalayas. So there's no way that in the 18th century, these Greeks, this big group of fucking Greeks, came over and wandered around and no one knew they were there. So how did they get there? Why
How
are
did they get there?
Weird.
Why are they there?
You've got me just fucking like, I can't say anything. I can't react because I'm just sitting here staring, trying to process. I'm like, I can figure it out. I've got it's like that meme with all the equations over the front of it. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to put the 2 and 2 together. Mate, I didn't do fucking math in year 11 and 12. I dropped that shit. I have no idea.
I don't know what's happening. Well, I have a theory. So
Yes.
there's this guy who's a retired archaeologist called Stuart Fidel. He hypothesizes that Rupkund B, the people, were Armenian travelers and traders. So apparently Armenians traveled really widely throughout Tibet, India, Nepal during like the 17th and 18th century. They traded pearls, amber, musk, like deer musk for perfume. So he says they might have been hanging out with some major Hindu party trying to sell them stuff. Nothing that was found of any value was found on the bodies. So he speculates that these travelers were killed by Thuggis, which were a cult of robbers and murderers whose fearsome reputation in British India gave us the word thug. I didn't know that's where that came from, but that's really cool. So Thuggis were said to attach themselves to groups or travelers or pilgrims, gain their trust, rob them, murder them, and leave them around, like wherever they lay.
How exhausting of a line of work.
Right? Apparently, like, the Thuggis would make off with the kids as well. And everyone in the Rupkund B population, he says, is mature. I didn't see that anywhere else. I just saw him say this. But also earlier, it did point out that, like, everyone's between the age of 18 and 35, so it kind of coincides with that. But there isn't any gold on the skeletons. There's no rings, necklaces, anklets. Who removed those things? Did people just not have them? Seems like something most people around that time, around that place, would probably have something. And then they were dumped in the water. The Thuggis would dump people in the water. So that's what Stuart says, old mate Stuart. Reach, one of the other guys that I mentioned earlier, was like fuck no. That is absolutely wrong. No fucking way. One, the DMA from the Rubicon B group is totally different from Armenians, both modern and ancient. What's more, scholars are starting to look at these reports by the British of thuggees as super inaccurate, super embellished, basically a reflection of colonialist fear and colonialist? Yeah, colonialist fear. And incomprehension of a country that they occupied. So they just didn't understand the Indian population of the people that lived there. And they're just like, oh, I'll just make it difficult and say that they're all thugs. They're all terrible people.
They're all
So,
criminals.
exactly. So there's a lot of
Ridiculous.
historians that are starting to go, did thuggees even exist? Was this even a thing? So we have no fucking idea why they're here, what happened to them, what killed them. We think maybe it was hailstones, just because there's a song and it kind of makes sense. Like, it's a place where hail happens. And it, weather would happen 1,000 years later, so that could work. Don't know why this lake, but basically now we probably won't ever really know because people are stealing the skeletons.
No! Grave robbers!
They're just taking them for fun. Tourists and just keepsakes, like bones. Okay, just go.
Hold up. There is a frozen lake that only is visible and defrosted like at very specific points of the year between a bunch of mountains on an ancient pilgrimage route, and it's full of skeletons and people are taking them. My dudes, this pool is super cursed.
Right?
How can you look at this and be like, this is not cursed, I'm just going to take a skeleton? Fuck off.
Exactly right. There's it just made me immediately think of when I went to A.K.A, and there was someone I knew was like, oh yeah, I have a necklace that I have because I took an alt key or an escape key, I think it was. Escape key would make sense, from a keyboard that I found in the forest there. I'm like, that's fucking cursed. That's definitely cursed. Why would you take that? What's wrong with you? Don't take that from someone's gravesite, you psycho.
I've read enough Japanese urban legends and folklore to know that you take something from a dead person from in a suicide forest, that shit so cursed.
Fuck no, exactly. And also then you look at like Lacey's cursed fucking diamonds and shit that she talked about. Just don't take shit. Just don't.
Just leave the dead be. Don't be like the dude who kept the lady in the tomb with a telephone and fucking probably definitely with a tube. Don't be like, leave the dead be.
Don't fuck anyone in a paper tube, please. So the bones that haven't been stolen have been rearranged into weird patterns. And weird sculpture things. So almost none of the skeletons are intact anymore. It's no idea which bones belong together, which ones where they originally lay. Also, there's nature that's added to the confusion. So there's, rock slides, avalanches. They fracture the bones and stuff, and yeah, so basically it's kind of fucked up. Recently, under a slab of rock, a team found the remains of a woman, bent double. She was still intact and still had skin and flesh. But yeah, they have no idea what the fuck's happening to it. The government is sort of trying to do ecotourism destinations and protecting the skeletons, but otherwise, that's it. That's all we know about this fucking lake of skeleton soup.
People suck. Stop moving the bones. I want to know what happened. I want to know. I want to know.
I love it.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
It made me very happy. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. So that's why I did a body of water, because it's not near an ocean. I'm sorry.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine.
Good. It's fine. It's fine.
That's
fine.
just... Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm imagining someone with like an ashtray skull, but it's... Where'd you get that? On holiday to the Himalayas.
Oh, it's a fake, right? No, it's real.
It's real.
Smashed it myself.
Fuck.
So I hope you liked that.
Well I loved it.
Very, very good.
I loved it.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And my sources will be in the show notes.
Yes. Expand that bad boy for all of our content warnings as well. My story is next. And I know I've been on that medical stories train for like 2 or 3 episodes now. But I have another one for you. Another truly bizarre piece of medical trivia for you, my loves, our listeners, everyone in between. So we'll start off with this.
Yeah.
It's going to contain some descriptions of injuries.
Oh.
Specifically burns. If that's not your porno, if that's not your cup of tea, that's fine. Skip ahead. But if it is, please stick around and listen. It's glorious. All right. So how long has it been since either of you have had a burn, like a really nasty one? Just fucked yourself.
High school.
Oh, really? That long?
I set myself on fire twice, which I think is pretty good.
I've
never set myself on fire.
Really?
I've had the big scene fringe with the hairspray in it that ended up having some small sizzles in it, but that's the worst.
That's what I did. I lit mine on fire with a cigarette lighter trying to light a cigarillo.
Yep,
Aw.
done that.
I'm sure I've told that story on the podcast before.
No, I regularly burn myself cooking because I'm dumb, but I haven't really burned myself
fine.
super bad.
Hands are for burning, in the words of Marco Pierre White. My stupidest burn, because I say this, I've written this down because I'd forgotten setting myself on fire with a cigarette lighter when I was 19. Sorry, Mum. But my stupidest burn was probably at the age of 5. We had one of those drip coffee percolator things.
Okay.
And how those appliances work is they have a very hot plate that the glass jug sits on and keeps the coffee warm. Well, idiot me was standing in my kitchen one day watching my stepdad just potter around because he was very rarely home because he worked a lot. So I was like, Dad's home. I'll follow him to the kitchen. And he was making himself a cup of coffee. He lifted the jug to pour himself a lovely cup, exposing that scorching hot plate underneath.
Oh,
and
no.
Potentially, yeah. So this is where I think the beginning of my impulsive, intrusive thoughts probably came. Who knows? Because I looked at that plate, 5-year-old me looked at that plate, and every part of me screamed, touch it. Touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it. And you know what? I did.
Oh, no, Tay.
Yeah. I extended a single pointer finger and I jammed it right down onto that plate. And it took a few seconds for everything to register with my stepdad because I just put it there and I left it there and I screamed but didn't lift my hand up.
Psych
And
your child.
he's like, what is this little gremlin doing? Oh shit, she's burned herself. I burned myself real bad. I burned myself so bad that the blister was the size of there's a 5-year-old, a very young child's finger. Imagine a blister the size of a Sour Patch Kid on the tip of her finger.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah. It swelled and it stayed like that for what I remember was ages because I was definitely really scared of popping the blister.
As you should be.
Is this pocket of just disgusting milky white fluid under my skin and it left my hand completely useless. And this is my right hand and I was just probably learning to write in primary school, grade prep, and I was I can't do anything. Eventually the blister was popped thanks to my stepdad wrestling my hand under his armpit and then just poking it with a sterilized needle because you can't have this here. Yeah. Perhaps if my stepdad had some cooking scraps lying around, I would have healed a little bit faster, harder, better, faster, stronger. Specifically, my loves, fish skin.
What?
Tilapia skin, to be even more specific. So this is my segment. Fish skin to treat burns.
What?
Now bear with me. This is a really fish skin, tilapia skin specifically. So this is a really experimental procedure, but it's this procedure that is used nonetheless.
Okay.
So doctors in Brazil have discovered a way to use fish skin grafts as a treatment for burns. They've been doing this since about 2016.
Oh, okay. So that's not that long.
No, not at all. So how it works is the skin is sterilized and then applied to the damaged area. So originally this involved the use of pig skin because our DNA is super similar to pigs. like how allegedly like human flesh kind of tastes maybe a bit like pork.
Smells like barbecue.
So they have discovered that tilapia works really well too. So thanks to the wounds research website, woundsresearch.com, for explaining how this works. So the fish skin contains collagen, fibrin. I'm just preparing myself to pronounce these last two things. Proteoglycans and glycosaminoglycans. I did it.
Well done.
Glycosaminoglycans. Therefore, it acts as a skin substitute. In addition to the omega-3 fatty acids within the skin, this all promotes wound healing by functioning as anti-inflammatory protection as well. So this is a textbook example of like improvise, adapt, overcome, because pig skin and other human tissue not super available in Brazil, according to sources.
Okay.
Yeah, so doctors in Brazil had to find like an alternate supply of collagen to treat these burn wounds. Here comes the tilapia. So doctors at the San Jose Institute could only provide like topical creams and like linen bandages for victims of like extreme burns. And like any wound dressing, these bandages had to be changed like really regularly. Super painful, right?
Oof.
Like if you've had a burn, you know the skin is like extremely damaged and the bandages are like sandpaper. Hell, like any material is like sandpaper when you brush it against a burn. Like it sucks.
Yeah,
So there was so there was a patient named Antonio Hanio.
Nice.
He said that So he said that the fish skin helped with the pain. Quote, "You don't need to take medicine. In my case, I didn't need it," which kind of checks out because like protecting the damaged skin, like all underneath that is all the nerve endings, and when they meet the air and the dirt and the friction, like that's where a bulk of the pain comes from.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It seems
and
wild, but sure.
Right, so that is why like he was like, "Oh, I wasn't in a lot of pain," but like he probably still was in like a considerable amount of pain.
Right.
I've seen pictures of him. His arm was fucked up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So after extensive research, it's discovered that, hey, the tilapia skin contains all these like type 1 and type 3 collagen proteins. And these are proteins essential for scarring. To quote burn specialist Dr. Edmar Maciel via State News, the fish skin contains more of these collagens than even human skin on its own. Like these fish are just next level.
Why are these fish so good?
Yeah, so they're farmed fish in Brazil. So it's like they're super available. The skin costs approximately like 75 cents less than normal bandages per application.
What? Fuck,
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the skin is considered a waste product of the farming industry.
Oh, okay.
So it's super cheap, like win-win.
Do they eat the fish? Are these fish edible?
Yeah, tilapia is super edible.
I have
It's very
no
nice.
idea. I don't eat fish. I have no.
That's super fair.
No clue.
I eat a lot of fish, and I can guarantee it is very good.
But how did they get to? We'll use a fish.
Yeah.
How many animals did they go through before they were like fish?
Yeah, so they were like trying to find these substitutes for like anything, because like the pig skin is like probably definitely very expensive, because like to farm a whole pig takes a lot longer to farm a little fish. So they tried like a bunch of stuff, because like there's like bovine ones as well, in the sense like cow and cattle, like cattle animal skins and stuff, and they just like kind of discovered, hey, the fish works super good.
All hail the
So
fish.
Yeah, I love the fish. Big fish boy.
Now the pictures,
Oh,
they are glorious. Except for one that involves a baby, which might be a bit distressing, so don't go hunting for that one.
I'm gonna hunt for that one.
We'll leave that one out of it.
Okay, I'm gonna look for it.
I'm gonna look for the baby one.
So the initial photo that I saw, which Tim kindly showed me during one of his 2 a.m. Reddit scrolls, thanks babe, is so metal. It's so metal. It's classic nature is metal. Reddit is wild. I can't believe I'm seeing this shit kind of like stuff. It was on interesting as fuck.
Yes.
This image will definitely be on the Instagram wizardspodcast.com.au.
Yes.
Wizardspodcast.com. I can never remember our URL.
We should know this.
We should know this. So it's not particularly gory in the sense that like I'm repulsed, because it's more fascinating than anything. It's like some Animorphs superhero origin story bullshit. So it's the first photo I ever saw was this dude laying on like a hospital bed. Like obviously the burns were horrendous up and down his legs. And the skin had, because they don't graft it in the sense that they like sew it on, they place it on and they like adhere it to the burns, and then the collagens will seep from the skin itself, the proteins into the damaged skin.
So like a
On the
sheep that
person.
super fucked up kind of thing.
Essentially.
Oh.
So I found a case study on the US National Library of Medicine that shows like the whole procedure. It's a little confronting because it's full of pictures of third-degree burns, but it was super cool to see the step-by-step. And the journal article is directly related to the treatments in Brazil. So how they do it is like they take the person with the burns and they're like, shit, you're burnt, let's fix you up. So they will apply like some topical, because they always apply like the topical creams and stuff, essentially, because that's like the first point of call. And then okay, this is where we start to get a little bit gory. So just your warning. So they get a scalpel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever seen those people that shave their faces on Instagram with the little like micro blades, because it's supposed to be good for your skin. So they're essentially doing that with a scalpel along the burn to take the necrotic layer of dead skin off.
Oh,
and so this skin sloughs off and it's all like gross and really like wet and awful and horrendous, and it's really, really cool to see. So they will shave that off with a scalpel first. So all the necrotic tissue is gone. And then they take these squares of like silver blue scaled skin and they will place it all over it, all over the burn site. And then that kind of like adheres and it hardens.
Oh. Fish boy.
Yeah. So the photo that I first saw was like the skin had hardened. So eventually it hardens and adheres to the burn site, and then they have to re-moisten it so it will slough off.
Right.
And after it's gone, the healing underneath is like pretty remarkable. Like it's not instantly gone, but there is a considerable change, and it's not normally on for very long. And because the skin is just pure protein, they don't have to change it as often. So once it dries out, they slough it off, they just add more on. It's not like a bench they have to change like daily.
That's amazing.
So it's amazing.
All I'm thinking of this whole time, though, is in A House of a Thousand Corpses, the fish boy statue that they
Rainn
make
Wilson.
of Dwight. Yes, of Rainn Wilson. Oh,
I love that bit.
It's
I always
so
forget
good.
he's in that, and then I watch it and I'm like, oh, there he is.
Bless.
Oh,
I
that's a
love
good
him.
film.
Love him, love him, love him.
Right, so also on my internet travels, because I was fascinated by this, I found an article on Vice about the same kind of treatment used on animals.
Oh?
On wildlife burned in Californian forest fires.
Yeah.
No, I'm sad.
So now we're going to talk about animals that have been hurt. So it might be a bit distressing, but I'm not going to go into any details because it's fine. Very happy endings. It's very sweet. I would stick around. So we've got two black bears and a mountain lion cub. And they have burnt paws. And they're treated with the same tilapia skin technique. So the burns were stitched with tilapia skin, then wrapped in rice paper and corn husks. Because making all the dressings edible, if the animals did happen to eat their dressings, they wouldn't like choke or like get an obstruction and die.
Yeah, I mean,
That's nice.
it's a bit like for the bear, like it putting, chocolate on its paws. Probably wants that fish.
Essentially. Yeah. So the quote from the article gave me a proper chuckle because it was like, we wrap their feet like little tamales.
Oh, that's so cute.
And they do look like tamales. It's really sweet.
Fuck, I'm hungry.
Yeah, dude, I'm starving. It's 5:45. It's dinner time. I'm a lady. I need my dinner. So the skin seemed to have an immediate relief on all the animals, with both bears up and walking with after the first application.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So they're like super wild. So they're like the kind of animals like you can't just treat them and then walk in and check on them.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to like sedate them. You can't sedate them too many times. So they were like, all right, we're going to put these on. I'm going to just leave. So they left them in their like enclosures and they were like super fine.
Oh, shit.
the vets were so surprised by the effectiveness of the tilapia skin, they have pushed for further study into the treatment on like humans and animals. Like, it's insane.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Tamale
Fuck yeah.
fish.
Go
The
fish
bears,
skin.
yeah. The bears were happy ending. The bears were both re-released back into the wild. However, the mountain lion cub was too young, so they got sent to a sanctuary, and they are fine too.
Oh, that's nice. I like all
And
of that.
their paws are fine. And there is a really interesting video, like very small documentary on Vice, where they like showed how they applied the treatment, and it's a little confronting because you do see the burns, but they're not very big.
Okay.
It's you can stomach it. I think I will be sharing it if we are allowed to share things on Facebook. Who knows?
Oh,
I think Facebook died yesterday morning, so we'll see. Oh, also I did check. Is our page still there?
Oh.
I'll have to check
I hope
again.
so.
To know.
Who knows? Cheers for that, Murdoch Press. Anyway,
Thanks,
so in
girl.
conclusion, like the ocean isn't all thalassophobia and death because it holds secrets to probably some very ancient medicine. And
That's
also
a
how
very
to
nice way to look at it.
yeah,
And
'cause it-
also sea monsters.
and also how to become Aquaman.
And also a whale that sings at a frequency that no other whale can hear, and it's really sad.
No, it got sad.
I'm sorry, I have to ruin everything. I don't know how to not do it. I have to
It's
say
okay.
weird shit or I'll die.
Oh, isn't that a mood? But that is the medicinal tales of tilapia skin.
Thank you.
That's
That
cool,
was
yeah.
fucking insane.
Very cool.
And
I
really
know.
cool. Yeah,
Yes.
I learned things.
I learned things too. All right. So, in Oceans 1, I did the Titanic and her sisters. And so I'm going to keep...
and it was wonderful.
Thank you. I'm going to keep with the cruise ship theme and
Oh yes.
give you missing people from cruise ships. So a lot of people die on cruise ships, so much so that every cruise ship has to have a fully functioning morgue. And if the morgue is full, they have to get creative. So yeah.
Oh.
They'll be like, we have to serve heaps of ice cream today because there's a body in the fridge that, was our ice cream walk-in and things like that.
Oh my god.
So
That's really cool.
on average, there are at least 3 deaths per week aboard cruise ships worldwide. This is before COVID. We're not doing that shit.
No.
3 deaths per week aboard cruise ship worldwide. A lot die from suicide and natural causes. It's not uncommon that elderly people will book like a super long, expensive cruise so they can go out with a bang kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because you wouldn't have to cook for like the last 100 days of your life. And you get a pool and stuff. Why not?
Can confirm.
Free booze.
As someone who's been on a cruise ship, I ate so much fucking free food.
I really want to go on a cruise.
It's so good. Debaucherous. I spent the entire time in like the adults only pool section because it was like a family oriented cruise ship because I'm my family. And me and mum just got day drunk every day on like banana lounges. And then we would go to dinner.
Much weirder shit than that, but I'm hoping you're not going because your mum's involved.
No. Like honestly, me and mum just got day drunk, read a bunch of books, had dinner at like 5:30 in the afternoon because it was like dinner sessions, and then we would just like drink again, and then we'd fall asleep by like 8 o'clock because our room was on the inside and it was pitch black. So you didn't wake up not knowing what time it is. You're in this tiny box coffin in the middle of the ocean. Oh, a dream. Everyone wanted to.
Box coffin in the middle of the ocean. Oh shit.
Well, look, I'm keen still. I don't know if that would sell me if I weren't me.
I know my audience.
So, since the year 2000, only about 300 people have died from other causes, such as falling overboard. Other. And, murder. Murder time. So, I've got some stats.
Murder!
Yeah. Murder on the high seas. So, fun fact, the ocean or international waters, in legal language, it's actually called the high seas. Which I think is piratey and really, really cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was just a silly term.
No,
That's cool.
The high seas is the proper legal term for the ocean. There you go.
Oh my God,
Um,
that's so funny.
so here's some stats for you. The average age of a person who falls overboard is 41 years old. Males are more likely to
Oh.
fall overboard than females. Falling overboard
They're
is,
top heavy.
yeah, statistically most common to fall on the last night of the cruise when you're obviously the most drunk that you can be. The most frequented states of residency for people who fall overboard are California and Florida.
Florida man falls
strikes
from
again.
boat.
Yeah. Most people who fall overboard are either drunk or engaged in, they're not doing the right shit. They're like climbing in between the cabins or playing on the railings, that kind of thing.
I thought you were going to say they were
course.
fucking
Oh, no,
Yeah, me too.
on the railings, like leggy up.
I mean, probably. Oh god, that'd be a way to go.
Probably.
Some of them.
The survival rate of somebody who falls overboard is 1 in 5. And the longest time
wow.
a survivor was found in the water alive was after 18 hours in 2003. He was treading water for that long.
That's not very long.
That sounds horrible.
I have a few friends who've worked on cruise ships and things like that. So we had a great chat, and I was like, tell me all the shit. And they were like, the crew get drunk every night. That's all they do.
Every night.
Every night.
I want to work on a cruise ship.
Apparently the pay is shit
the
house.
pay is shit.
Oh, really?
The accommodation is shit. Yeah, it's really, really bad. So in my research, I found that things like responsible service of alcohol aboard cruise ships does not exist because drink purchases.
Oh no, can confirm.
Oh yeah, drink purchases make big dollary dues for the cruise lines, so it's against their best interest to stop you. Yep.
Because the food's all included. That's why they make the money.
On the Carnival Liberty in 2016, Samantha Broberg, 33, was served 19 drinks before she toppled over the 3.5 into the Gulf of Mexico.
Holy shit.
Into the Gulf.
She'd only been on it was her first day. She'd only been on the cruise ship 12 hours.
Oh my god.
No.
Yeah.
Holy fucking
Now,
shit.
So to give you an idea of
pace yourself.
To give you an idea of what Samantha sort of like looked like, her BMI was 19. Samantha was my height at 165 centimeters. I wish I was her fucking weight at 54 kilograms, but I'm not. So she was very, very tiny.
Is she a child?
No, she wasn't. 33. And
oh my god.
Yeah, and I've also found out that because cruise ships are in international waters and all are registered to different ports around the world, it's very, very tricky when it comes to legal problems and bringing about litigation. According to FBI statistics, 16% of all murders and 7% of all rapes reported aboard cruise ships have actually led to convictions and plea bargains. 7% of rapes, 16% of murders have actually gone to court.
What?
I had to think about that. My brain wouldn't compute that. It was like, no. What? Say that again. Excuse me, sir.
What? Yes. Change your mind. I'm never going on a cruise again.
Yep. It's very, very it's very, very hard. And there's actually like specific maritime lawyers, because the average lawyer can't do this shit when it's like all this weird like international high seas litigation. You have to go hire a maritime lawyer.
Yeah, one of the Collier brothers was a maritime lawyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Way back when.
Mate, full circle.
Collections
Not only
episode.
is Oceans 2.0, mate, there's depth here. We're referencing older episodes again and again and again. We've done it twice this episode. There are layers to this onion.
There are many, many layers. So
why are we talking about food again? I'm fucking hungry. Cease.
All right, so I'm going to start. I've just found the most interesting ones. There are so many. Like, so many. All right. So, 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley traveled with her family on the Rhapsody of the Seas, a Royal Caribbean cruise liner bound for Curacao on May 21, 1998. She was a recent college graduate. Amy enjoyed a lot of her time on the cruise. The only thing that seemed to put a dampener on her holiday was how the ship's waiters seemed to shower Amy with attention, to the point where she told her family she found it creepy. But determined not to spoil their cruise, she shook it off and her and her brother became regulars at the ship's nightclub. This is where they were hanging out on the night she disappeared. The last person to see Amy was her father, who saw her asleep on the balcony of their room at around 5:30 a.m. He then left the cabin.
Asleep on the balcony?
Yeah, like she was obviously like a bit wasted. But it like the
Okay.
the weather was
It's so
beautiful,
cold.
so you would just go sleep on the
Oh.
balcony. He left the
Okay.
cabin after checking on her, and when he came back 30 minutes later, Amy was gone. Her lighter and cigarettes were also gone, but her ID and shoes were left behind. Like, you don't go out of your cabin without shoes on. You have flip-flops on. Her father reported her missing right away, but found the crew were less than helpful. Amy's family asked the cruise. Yep, Amy's family asked the cruise staff to keep the ship on the waters until they could locate their daughter, to prevent her possible kidnapper with absconding with her, or to find her in the water. But the crew denied the family's request, docked the ship the next morning, and allowed passengers to disembark before starting their search.
Oh, what the fuck?
The
No
Bradleys
way.
believe this is when she was removed off the boat. Despite her body never being found, Amy was declared legally dead 12 years after her disappearance. But there have been multiple witnesses who have reported sightings of Amy in the Caribbean. Within 24 hours of her disappearance, a taxi driver, this is like on one of the islands, claimed that a woman matching Bradley's description frantically approached him and asked him for a location of a payphone, and then quickly ran away. Later, in 1998, Canadian tourists claimed to have seen a woman with tattoos matching Amy's on a beach in Curacao. In 1999, a sailor with the US Navy claimed he was confronted by a woman in a brothel who told him that her name was Amy Bradley and she was being held against her will.
That's so scary.
Rather than report this incident, he sat on that information because he was worried about facing disciplinary action for visiting a brothel.
Oh, fuck you, dude.
Mm-hmm. In 2005, a witness claims she saw Amy in a department store restroom. The shopper reported that the woman was followed into the bathroom by 3 men who threatened her before leaving her in the bathroom by herself. The woman approached the witness and told her name was Amy from Virginia, but before she could give any more information, the men returned and dragged her out of the bathroom.
Oh, shit.
That is so scary. This is probably the scariest shit we've talked about on this fucking podcast.
Yeah.
My blood just ran cold. That's so scary.
So the
Sex
Bradley
trafficking is a thing that's so upsetting.
Yeah, it really fucking is.
And we just don't think about it very often, I think.
No. The Bradley family believes that members of the ship's crew targeted her for sex trafficking. In 2005, the Bradley family received photos of a woman identified as Jazz, who is said to be employed as a sex worker in the Caribbean. This woman shares an amazing resemblance to Amy. The FBI confirmed in 2017 that their facial recognition expert also believes this woman to be Amy.
Oh my God.
Yep. The FBI continues to offer a $25,000 reward for information leading to her recovery.
Oh, not enough money.
Amy.
Not enough money.
23, isn't that sad? Should be in her 40s now. So that's where Amy's story unfortunately ends. But I did look up, is it Rhapsody of the Seas? Sorry, I've just looked at so many fucking cruise ships today.
Yes, Rhapsody of the Seas.
Rhapsody of the Seas. All right. Okay, so I looked up the ship to see if there was any other shit that went on. There was. Mm-hmm. So on New Year's Day in 2010, a 15-year-old passenger was raped by a crew member.
15?
Mm-hmm. She had been seasick during the cruise and was resting alone in a cabin when the man entered. So her family went there. And then on the 22nd of September 2019, A crew member died after going overboard while the ship was docked in the Croatian port of Dubrovnik. Royal Caribbean
Well, it was docked.
Yep. Royal Caribbean said the 35-year-old waiter had completed suicide, but his family in India completely deny this. And so do other members of the crew that was on.
Oh, okay.
See, that's super tough
Mm.
because there are a lot. Like when I went on my cruise, a vast majority of the crew were people of color. A lot of them were Indonesian. They were worked so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Like it feels really shitty. I'm having second thoughts about endorsing the cruise as much as I did at the start of the episode.
Oh.
But like every night at dinner you have like specific waiters that will wait on your table, and like they would have like our session is early, then they have a late session, and then I would be at the breakfast buffet at like 7 a.m. and the dude that serviced our table would be at the buffet, and I'm like, my dude, you working hard? He's like, yes. And I'm like, that's too hard.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And I would see him everywhere. I never saw him not seem to be resting.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I might definitely believe that poor man did commit suicide because they fucking overwork them to the bone.
Yep.
That's so miserable. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Don't go on a cruise, Laura.
No, okay,
actually,
right, yeah.
I've changed my
Talked
mind.
out of it.
Actually, right now, cruise ships. Actually, I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to go on to my next one, and then I will stick that comment into another little cool bit of information that I found for y'all. All right.
We'll circle back.
The next one, George Allen Smith. So 26-year-old George Smith was on a 2-week Mediterranean honeymoon, and they were headed to from Greece to Turkey aboard the Brilliance of the Seas in 2005 July. So this is Royal Caribbean again. It's Royal Caribbean and then Carnival, and then the Norwegian one are like the biggest cruise ships. They have the majority of everything. And then the Seas, so the Royal Caribbean has the biggest ship in the world, which is Harmony of the Seas. And she has like capacity for 4,000 to 5,000 people. It's like, it's completely huge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's so big. Anyway.
It's a traveling city.
It's a traveling city. People are like, is the Titanic still the biggest ship? Like on Google, I'm like, people are dumb as fuck. Oh, no. So George worked in his family's own like fancy liquor store in Connecticut. Like it was very like crafty, and it was a very, very old liquor store as well. He was into weightlifting. He loved The Office. He was described as like an all-American guy, that kind of thing. His bride, Jennifer, gorgeous blonde goddess. She was a teacher and she got a new job, and she was going to teach 3rd grade upon their return. So that night, not that night, the whole fucking cruise, they would just drink a fuckload. And they had gotten really close to these other 4 men on the ship. One was American and the other 3 were Russian Americans. And the night of the incident, the group sat in the disco and passed around a bottle of absinthe that one of the boys had smuggled on board. Now, we know that nobody has a good night out on absinthe.
No, they do not.
So this was illegal. Like you weren't allowed to bring your own liquor onto the ship because they want you to pay for drinks on the ship. And they obviously weren't going to be giving you like proper Russian absinthe on the ship. But that's what they were drinking. So according to many witnesses, George and Jennifer were fucking so wasted. So the one thing we can all universally acknowledge is that Americans are loud. Lots of people noticed them because they were a very, very loud group. So everybody knows where they were at all points of the night. So loud.
Oh, okay.
So George was wasted enough to accuse Jennifer of being too flirty with the other lads. After this statement, George and Jennifer engaged in an argument that culminated with Jennifer kicking her new husband in the balls and walking angrily out of the disco.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Okay.
So George could not walk back to his room, so the men had to help him. The room was empty when George got in, so the boys helped him change his shirt and go look for Jennifer at the like solarium sauna area, which was like a popular hookup place. Jennifer wasn't there, so the group guided George back to his room, arriving about 4 a.m. Sorry. The Smiths' on-ship neighbor claimed he heard an argument in the room. These guys were so loud, this poor guy just wanted to fucking sleep. He called like security on them. And
Holy shit, okay.
when security, he heard everything. So he heard the argument in the room, and then he heard the door open, and the neighbor looked out the peephole and saw 3 men calling out goodnight before leaving down the hallway. Then there was silence. Then roughly around 4:20 to 4:25 a.m., the neighbor heard what he describes as a horrific thud. So violent that he felt the vibration in his bed. He just assumed somebody had tripped over something in the room because he knew that they were all wasted. So, where is Jennifer? Jennifer had wandered off elsewhere and passed out, blackout drunk in some random hallway. She was woken up, I think about 5 or 6 a.m., by her crew, who had to take her back to her cabin in a wheelchair. And when they were putting her in, her in the room, George wasn't there, and the crew members didn't really notice anything amiss. They just put her to bed, that kind of thing. Jennifer slept for 3 hours before heading to a massage appointment. She said that she thought George might be sleeping in like one of the other lads' rooms because that had the argument, and he'd done that before on the trip. Unbeknownst to Jennifer, early that morning, a passenger had found a great deal of blood on the lifeboat canopy below the cabin. Officials investigated passengers in the cabins near the canopy because they knew that something had happened. And
someone's bleedy.
Yeah. And this is when they realized that George had gone overboard. To this day, no one admits to knowing what happened to George. Some believe he was shoved overboard by the men at the casino, while others, in a state of extreme intoxication, believe he became disorientated on the balcony and fell. But like what happened is, so there was 4 men helping George into that room, and the neighbor only saw 3 leave.
Oh.
Ooh.
Okay.
So, Royal Caribbean arrived at their next port of call of Turkey. And the ship wasn't locked down. Passengers and crew members were free to disembark as usual, potentially taking crucial evidence off the cruise ship with them. But really, any crucial evidence you just chuck into the sea, really. That would be normal.
Yeah, I mean,
Poseidon has it now.
The Turkish authorities investigated the supposed crime on board for a grand total of 2 hours. And this was after the Royal Caribbean crew had already contaminated the crime scene by cleaning the room anyway. But there was blood on the balcony, blood on like the railing of the balcony, and then blood on the canopy. That was like where the lifeboats were all housed. So you'd expect like maybe blood on the canopy if he fell on, but if there was already blood on the balcony, where did that blood come from? You know what I mean? Yeah, and so we still don't know what happened to George, and his body was never recovered. And those 4 men have never been questioned, or nothing came about it. They just went home.
Nobody asked any questions. It's fine.
Just went home.
Yeah. Fuck's sake.
Cool. So I had a look at...
You sound like a time.
Yeah. So I had a look at... Oh, God, which one was this? Sorry. Brilliance of the Seas. In case there's anything else that happened. Nothing happened but a healing incident, HEELING, where the boat rocks side to side quite violently. That happened once on board. 8 people were injured and 1 lady actually died. people that were thrown out of
Oh.
their beds. This whole big,
Oh.
like the top deck of the ship basically was splashed up with water. Like it was so crazy that more people
That's a
didn't die.
fucking lot. That's huge.
I know. Okay, next one. Her name was Annette Meisner. In December of 2004, Annette Meisner, 37, won a Carnival cruise to the Mexican Riviera. So this was
Oh, honey, poor
amazing.
thing.
She took her parents and her teenage daughter along for the trip. They had a great time. On the last night of the 9-day Mexican Riviera cruise on the Pride, she sang karaoke with her daughter and then hit the casino. Her parents quickly became concerned when Annette did not show up to play the next round of bingo with them at 9:30. Annette had already won the first 2 rounds.
Oh shit, okay.
It was only when a passenger on the smoking deck found Annette's beaded purse, still full of her bingo cash from her winnings, and an
I was
upturned
going to say,
glass
I would not
next to
leave
the railings.
bingo behind.
The purse was broken. Beads from the purse were all over the deck and spots of blood were found. The security camera that was pointing directly at the railing had a piece of paper stuck to the front of the lens.
A paper?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's so
that's
crude.
all you need to do, but still.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dun dun dun. Very suspicious. Okay, so naturally it's not a problem and the cruise ship is just going to ignore it.
Annette's daughter had told security several times that a man was harassing her mother, and every time they refused to assist. This may have been because that
Oh my
man
God.
was a crew member. He was also
I was going
the
to say,
person.
what the fuck is the point of being security then?
I don't know. He was also the person who was calling out the bingo numbers that night.
Ah.
Bingo, we found him.
Mm-hmm.
Shut the fuck up.
So, despite only having a total of 3 drinks that day, 2 were with lunch and 1 was with dinner, Carnival maintains that Annette was drunk and fell over the railing.
Fuck you.
Another thing that Annette's daughter, they don't name her because she was a minor at the time. Otherwise, I would have,
Yes.
Her mother's stuff was found on the smoking deck, and her mother not only wasn't a smoker, abhorred smoke. She would never be on that deck. It's not like she would go have a glass of wine on that deck because it was the smoking deck and she hated smokers.
It's very out of character. What was she doing there?
What was she doing?
I have questions. I want answers. Where is
So a lot of most of the ships now, according to my friend, because this was in 2004, they have a thermal imaging system that can detect when people fall overboard. So the lady who served 19 drinks, Samantha, in the beginning, they caught her on the thermal imaging camera falling overboard. So that was 2017. So it has
my God,
gotten better now. And sort of like what happens with the crew is when that's an overboard, they may not be able to see the person in the water, but what they're doing is they have to chuck things that float, whether that's a chair or a ring, whatever they do, because even if the person can't get to that thing, the ship can then properly see where that person was, and if that puddle water drifts, then they can see it, because it takes a while for these big ships to stop.
Yeah.
And
as we discovered with the HMS Olympic. She's a big girl.
Yes.
It's hard to maneuver yourself when you're that large.
All right. And then now we have probably the most famous Reddit thread person to disappear off a ship, 23-year-old Rebecca Coram.
I know about this one.
You do.
This is familiar.
You just don't know her name.
Tinking something in the back of my brain. I think I know this one, but I'm not sure.
She was amazing. She beat out hundreds of other applicants for the position of crew member aboard the Disney Cruise Line.
Yep.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yep. She then flew from her native England to Florida for training at Disney World. Before she was there 4 months on cruises to and from the Bahamas. Amazing. Her next post was on the Disney Wonder, a cruise ship that was docked in Los Angeles. and would travel through the Mexican Riviera and like the Panama Canal. So that was like a different area to where she was before, which she was delighted with. So Rebecca, or Bex to her friends, went to Plymouth University to study sports science. Afterwards, she applied for a staff volunteer position with the British Army Cadets and was heavily involved with numerous events, organising camping and outdoor activities for the cadets, that sort of thing. And unsurprisingly, this led to Rebecca spending 4 months at Camp America as a counselor, teaching, sports-related hobbies and canoeing and stuff like that. And a little cute fact that I found out about her and her family is that it's a tradition in her family to work at the Chester Zoo as like a voluntary zookeeper. And there's actually memorial benches at that zoo to commemorate family members that had passed, but they worked at the zoo. I think that was really cute. So she was quite she's a very self-motivated person. Obviously loved, being with people, that sort of thing. While working aboard the Disney Wonder, she maintained daily communication with her parents via Facebook, Skype, and phone conversations, as Rebecca's grandfather had recently just passed away, and her family, who were quite tight-knit, were all trying to cope with the sudden passing.
Wow.
So on the 21st of March 2011, she sent a message via Facebook to her parents saying that she would call the next day. So the next day, on March the 22nd, her parents received a phone call, not from their daughter, but from Disney, informing them that their daughter had gone missing.
Oh my God. Can you imagine getting that call and knowing, like, if my daughter went missing on a cruise ship, she's off the cruise ship?
Yep.
Fuck.
Rebecca was scheduled to start her shift at 9 a.m. and when she never arrived, many crew members searched the ship and tried to reach Rebecca on the intercom. Employees alerted the US Coast Guard and the Mexican Navy, who were in the area at the time, and all other ships that were in surrounding area, so like pleasure cruises, like merchant vessels, that kind of thing, to be on the lookout for an individual that might have fallen overboard. So here's the thing that's very, very different about the other missing people on this list. They tried so hard to find her. They tried really, really hard. Yep. And when they couldn't, that's when stuff started to get quite shady. So they're trying to look, they've called everybody. Then the crew proceeded to review the extensive security camera footage, and Rebecca made a brief appearance on camera. At 5:40 a.m., about 3 hours before she was scheduled to begin work, a shipboard security camera recorded her presence in the crew area talking on the internal telephone. She reportedly appeared to be quite upset. A young man went up to her and asked if everything was all right. She clearly replied, "Yeah, fine," which she hung up and walked away. According to Disney, from there are no other sightings of Rebecca caught on camera.
That seems difficult considering how big the fucking ships are, like, and how extensive the camera situation apparently is.
And this was in 2011. So this was before the thermal imaging cameras were on.
Okay.
And you best believe that Disney was one of the first to get the thermal imaging cameras. They got that money.
They've got that money.
They got that Disney money. So her parents were told that Rebecca had been washed overboard from the crew pool area on deck 5. A story they find quite implausible because of the high protective walls around the crew area. And when I did some fucking research, because Reddit couldn't help me for once, where that pool was, even if the walls weren't there, that wave would have had to be 30 or 50 feet. And nobody's reported. And nobody's reported like a wave. Like, it's a big wave, right? People would have known about it. So when making inquiries, her parents found that Disney execs and crew members were vague and unhelpful. When the parents told Disney that they didn't buy the swept overboard idea, Disney suggested that Rebecca had completed suicide. The quorum said Disney officials had told them Rebecca was drunk and furious on the footage, banging her head against the walls, but the video gave no evidence to support these claims. But they were granted access to their daughter's cabin to collect her personal belongings. Senior staff members presented them with a pair of flip-flops that were discovered on deck 5 in the proximity of the pool where she was allegedly swimming when she fell overboard. However, upon closer examination, not only were the flip-flops too big and not in the style that she would particularly favor or wear, the sandals had the name and cabin number of another crew member.
Oh,
So they
okay.
didn't belong to her.
God.
In August
God,
of 2000,
Disney is so fucking dodgy.
Yeah. In August of 2011, Rebecca's mother received an email from her daughter's bank, who knew of the circumstances of Rebecca's they knew that she was gone. The email was like, somebody's been trying to activate and get into this account. Is this you? Who is this? And that her daughter was missing. So that October, a British journalist, this is with the parents' permission, sailed on the Wonder to discreetly ask some questions. Several crew members who had been on the ship at the time of Rebecca's disappearance spoke to him on the condition of anonymity, and they suggested that more was known about her fate than Disney was publicly admitting. Quote, Disney knows exactly what happened, unquote, one worker said. Everything here is taped.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. When private investigators reviewed the last CCTV footage of Rebecca, they found that instead of the phone call occurring on deck 5 as Disney officials have, or to this day, claim, claim, the timestamp on the footage has the call occurring on deck 1.
Oh. Okay. So why would they lie about
Why?
where she was?
Yeah. Because really, shouldn't matter where the phone was. Because she could still be at the pool at that time on deck 5. Elevators exist. It's not like she has to walk there. So Rebecca's mother and father filed a lawsuit against Disney due to the immense number of contradictions, lack of assistance, utter failure of conducting a thorough investigation. Name one, any of them. And in 2015, the Coram family and Disney settled out of court for an undisclosed amount of funds. But
okay.
Rebecca's mother and father believed that their daughter was murdered on the Wonder.
Dude, that's so depressing.
Yeah. So had a bit of a look at the Disney Wonder to see, what was going on with it. To do with COVID, actually. So the Wonder was still at sea and doing fucking business as usual during the COVID pandemic. And a passenger disembarked out of Los Angeles port, and they were like, I have COVID. And Disney's like, nobody on the ship has COVID. How dare you, blah, 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 no COVID here, COVID free forever. That was a lie. There was a number of people in there with COVID. And they quarantined them and stuff like that. But that was in the April. As of July of last year, of 2020, there were still 700 crew members aboard the Disney Wonder. And they'd been there for months.
Still 700.
Locked in their cabins.
How? Oh my God, that's awful.
Mm-hmm.
Those poor fucking people.
So, deck 1 is where the cabins are for the crew, and it's underwater, so there's no daylight. There's nothing.
Oh,
they're not getting those good balcony
Lord.
fucking rooms or anything.
They're probably so mentally unwell, those poor things, after all that time.
Yeah. So a lot of crew members from cruise ships have actually been completing suicide during these things, because of course the Wonder isn't the only cruise ship that's doing this.
No, fuck no.
So there's been a lot of completed suicides and things like that. A lot more than usual, which is really, really sad. Cool. So I'm ending it on a downer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love your work. Thanks for that.
There we go,
In
guys.
true Weird Sisters fashion.
I feel like, is it how Laura feels every time she ends it like this? Yeah, guys. So cruise ships, not that great, not that brilliant.
No, okay. Look,
I retract every statement I made.
They're
They're
also
fucked.
fucking
Absolutely cooked.
terrible for the environment. So bad.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So
All right. Well, I'm not going on a cruise.
Lots of
Don't damn it.
pollution, and then when they're out far enough to sea,
Waste.
that's when they ditch their wastewater.
Oh, wankers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going on a cruise.
We can day drink on the shore.
Yep. Someone come to the park and hang out by the little river with me.
Like we normally do. We'll just get drunk on land.
Well, I'm thoroughly fucking depressed now. Thanks, Lacey.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you're also feeling depressed at home, you can keep that trainer rolling. WeirdSistersPodcast.com for all of our socials. Give us a follow. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. Please leave us a review if you can. Engagement always helps. Keeps the lights on, not literally, because we don't get any money from this. We do it purely out of
my
enjoyment
brain.
of our hearts. But the lights on in my brain. It keeps me active, because I would just be I would be a corpse in a lake.
That's mine. You can't steal that.
Yeah. I would be a tilapia with no skin.
Oh
Yep,
God,
that works. You
that's
can be a
worse.
fish.
That's so much worse. Just be a skeleton in a lake.
I'm a little tamale wrapped up in a foot. It's going 2 foot long. Cut the joke. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.